Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great guest tonight, a longtime activist, David Borden with StopTheDrugWar.org and the Drug Reform Coalition Network. So stay tuned for that interview. First, though, we'll bring on our infamous dancing cannabis lead.
I feel the force.
Okay, well, if you are a loved one or looking for help finding a doctor who helps medical marijuana patients, we have doctor referral for doctors all over the country. So call us at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. Stay tuned. We'll bring on our guest and keep working to restore him. Good night. But I'd never get you in Portland to do this show. So doing it this way is pretty good. I had some guy come in and donate this mural behind me. So I just use it as a background. Well, better than any other background I have.
Okay. Well, it's an appropriate background.
Yeah. It's kind of psychedelic. The guy's a pretty famous graffiti artist.
Oh, wow.
I was grateful that he came in and did it.
All right.
Didn't charge anything.
We are recording, so whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, I'm ready if you are.
I'm ready.
I would like to introduce Dave Borden of StopTheDrugWar.org and DRCnet.org. DRCnet stands for the Drug Reform Coalition Network that has been active. When did DRCnet start, David?
Late 1993.
I see. So 32 years now. Almost 32 years. So that's a long time. And Stop the Drug War. You've been using that name for your organization for a long time, and your website. It's great URL. When did you start using StopTheDrugWar.org?
Well, we switched to using it most of the time as our public-facing name, I think in 2000. So something like that.
Well, I remember the Drug Reform Coalition Network started online as an email list to the heads of various drug reform organizations. You want to tell us how you came to start that, or how it came into being?
Sure. Well, by 1991 or 2, I was feeling like I wanted to save the world. Somehow thought I could. And reading about lots of different issues, I found drug policy kept jumping out at me as an area where we were just getting things backwards and real consequences. The first issue to really grab my attention was the idea that prohibition of drugs, analogously to what happened during our nation's experience with alcohol prohibition, had the effect of sending all kinds of economic activity into the criminal underground, with violence often being the result. And I thought, well, look at parts of our cities where the drug trade is out in the open, and that must be driving away. That must be part of one of the reasons. And some places it's hard to get businesses to, and or give people a good environment where they can walk peacefully around their own neighborhoods and grow up in a calm environment. So I had a concept early on of the potential of the internet for political organizing. Back at that time, the commercial internet, widely available for everyone, was in its early stages. Maybe 1 out of 6 people were online at that point. So I started posting bulletins to the early Usenet talk groups.
That's
Not
what
the
I
early-
did. That's and I started posting occasionally to my collection of hemp news to your group on Usenet.
Yeah, and talk.politics.drugs was the biggest one, I think, and those were not the earliest ways people talked to each other and gathered on the internet, but one of the earliest, certainly looking at it over the time scale we have now. And there was interest from people like yourself, and played a role helping to encourage the movement to get online and do some coordinating. And funding became available in drug policy reform not so long afterwards. So I was in a good position to get some support, and that's what I made it a full-time effort.
Where did your first support come from?
Well, the first major support was from the Drug Policy Foundation. For people who know the groups today, DPF merged with what had been a program of the Open Society Foundations, the Linda Smith Center, and eventually took the name Drug Policy Alliance. And so their grant program that they have today, which we're finally no longer on, changes there, but we're on for at least a quarter century. It's in a few different incarnations, it's the same grant program.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember the Drug Policy Foundation, founded by the late great duo Kevin Zeese and
Arnold Trebach.
Arnold Trebach. Thank you for calling that up there. They were great people. And in fact, Kevin Zeese, I first reached out to him when he was at Normal. And that was about 1982. And so I worked with him in Washington State Normal and other normal activities after that. But I think the way it worked with DRCnet is it was, at first anyway, it was mainly a group of various reform groups. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Well, my thinking was, there were all these different groups, not nearly as many as today, but a good number. And not all of them had the same mission scope and belief system. There are groups like Normal focused on marijuana policy reform, groups like mine that took a broad legalization standpoint, groups focused on sentencing, hemp groups, organizations in the harm reduction movement. So I thought there'd be value in a news source where everyone's activities could be, information about everyone's activities could be compiled and sent around, and then people, organizers, but everyone who's interested could get what they want from it, find more ways to get active, and people coming at things from different perspectives could think about the other perspectives and figure out how to work together, or at least how to stay out of each other's way.
Yeah, and there were various things happening, so it allowed the various groups to kind of coordinate, or at least make the others knowledgeable about what they were trying to do, as I recall.
Yeah, that was the idea, and I think we helped.
Oh yeah, you definitely did. So with Stop the Drug War, how did that develop? It was just a really good moniker you decided to use, or was it a separate program?
Um, it's a public-facing name, a moniker, as you put it. In legal terms, it's a doing business as registration in Washington D.C. For the organization. Um, just seemed like it would mean more to most to people who don't already know what we're about.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely says it a little bit better than Drug Reform Coalition. So, tell us about your activities over the years. Some of your most significant works over the '90s, and then we'll go to the next decade.
Well, I hope I have it all sorted out.
I
in,
know it's
in
hard
the
to remember back then. Those memories get a little fuzzy over time, but we'll record it, and as long as YouTube will keep it up, it'll be out there as an archive for people.
well, good. Well, in 1997, we launched a newsletter, Drug War Chronicle, which we still publish. And you may have noticed the Chronicle hasn't been coming out for a number of months. It's about to restart with the same person, Phil Smith, who's been with us since 2000. And that reports on the different threads of the issue and provides the news. So similar um, structure of mission to what we talked about before with the organization's founding. Starting in the late 90s also, and with our active involvement for 9 or 10 years, or maybe a little more, and then continuing until a few years ago, we launched an effort to oppose and try to get rid of a question that was placed on people's financial aid forms for college that asked about drug convictions with denial of federal aid for periods of time ranging from a year to indefinite for people who had convictions. And we were part of things as far as what was almost the second narrowing of the law. In 2006, we got the law narrowed to drug convictions for drug law crimes committed while a person is already in school and receiving federal aid. And in 2010, the House voted to narrow it further to include, I think, only felonies, something like that, or only sales. And then bigger things happened that crowded it out of the process in the Senate. Then we had not been active with the effort, but kept going. Students for Sensible Drug Policy played a big role. A group we founded in conjunction with this legislative campaign. And in December 2000, the law was fully struck from the books as part of what was mainly COVID-19 economic relief bill. So that was a big part of our work for a long time. We have been engaged in the UN in UN activity, particularly at the Commission on Narcotic Drugs, since at least 2015, and in 2017, we got involved in efforts related to the drug war killings that were being done by police and vigilantes in the Philippines under Rodrigo Duterte, which are still continuing at a smaller level now. And that is probably the biggest thing we've done to date. Our first UN event in March 2017 caused a big political blow up over there due to the vice president of the Philippines, who opposed the Duterte drug war, sending us a video, which turned out to be something people really react to, and back in the Philippines. And we're still doing work on that. In connection with that, we've gotten involved in various democracy and rule of law efforts that extend beyond drug policy. So we're a different organization in that sense, though we are still a drug policy organization. And we're involved in coalitions advocating in relation to the International Criminal Court and Magnitsky Act, human rights sanctions, and that sort of thing. Concerned about the impact of disinformation on society, which was and the manipulation of people through social media platforms, which is how Duterte came to power. So those are and starting a few years ago, we got involved in the discussion around safe banking, opening up financial services more thoroughly and steadily to the industry, and trying to get electronic payments normalized. I did the first study on the characteristics of cannabis store robberies, which focused on what happened in Washington State a few years ago, the big surge of them. And I'd hoped it would settle what seemed like an unlikely debate to me over whether cannabis store robberies are really a thing or whether cash is an issue. So I found how much of a thing robberies are varies a lot over both time and place, but it's a real issue, and cash is the dominant target, albeit not the sole target, of armed robberies, as opposed to burglaries, where it appears, but needs to be more of a look at this because of less data. It appears that with burglaries, cannabis product is the bigger, figures more prominently as the target.
Mm-hmm. Well, being here in Portland, we're right on the river across from Washington State, so we have a few viewers over there. But boy, you've touched on so many issues. I want to thank you for your decades of work and commitment. I have had Michael Kravitz on a few times talking about developments with the United Nations and their drug policy supervisory duties there. Do you want to tell us more about that?
Sure. And we work closely with Michael. He gets his accreditation to UN events through us. Though he's also working with other organizations as well. So we're not sure where to start. Lots of different things at the UN.
Well, cannabis had been prohibited under United Nations treaty, starting with the Single Convention Act of 1961 and its subsequent amendments, and then the UN treaties on psychotropic substances, and it was placed in the most restrictive schedule. And so I know with your work and international group of activists that changed. Just it's been like 2.5 years now that they voted to move it to a less restrictive stance.
Yes, I'd say more specifically, It's remained in Schedule 1, which, according to the treaty, is supposed to be limited to medical and scientific uses. But it was also in Schedule 4, which could say reinforces that, and it was removed from Schedule 4. So it's which is a good thing, but the benefits of that are mainly political. Other things happen with various component component chemicals. So good what happens, but it was the case before and now that medical availability is not considered a treaty violation.
Mhm.
But there's tension over legalization, for which there's language in the treaty that, in my opinion, is hard to get around. Some people think you can. On the other hand, and so in statements we've organized in the setting of the Commission on Narcotic Drugs and the 2016 UN General Assembly Special Session on the World Drug Problem, the UNGAS, you might hear people talk about. Our statement, along with addressing a whole set of drug policy issues, had to focus on the idea of revising the drug conventions to clearly allow for regulation systems, legalization systems, whatever word one prefers. But in the meanwhile, justifies legalization by countries now based on the idea that one inevitably sees significant human rights violations take place in the context of drug prohibition systems. And so it's reasonable for a country's leadership to determine that they need to move to legalization in order to more successfully implement human rights. And not just the idea that many of us feel that personal decisions about drug use should be respected if people aren't hurting other people as a human rights issue in and of itself, but that clearly recognized human rights abuses, like again what happened in the Philippines, extrajudicial killings, for example, draconian sentencing here in the U.S. In order to do a better job with those, many people believe sincerely that there's a need to move to some form of legalization. And so human rights in the UN Charter is the supreme priority. Drug control isn't. And so if they're in tension, if they conflict, then our statements argued, similarly to what Uruguay had argued when they moved forward, that human rights take precedence and justifies departing from the strict language of the drug conventions in the situation in which it seems impossible to move international policy towards treaty reform. So that's part of what we've worked on at the UN, big part of it.
Yeah, many a time we've used that Lindy video about no-knock raids as an example of the horror of drug law enforcement. But you mentioned bank. And I know you probably don't know, but I personally have been through 20 separate bank closure events starting in 2007. So in several, my business at a time in the early aughts between about 2010 and 2016 was doing several $1 million a year in business helping medical marijuana patients. But I had my bank accounts closed and they wouldn't tell me why. So I asked the banker, he said, in several cases, in these 20 different events, they said our account was the best account at their branch. And I could tell you 20 different stories, but I won't waste your time right now. Out of those 20 different events, only twice did they say it was because of marijuana. All the other times they said they couldn't tell me. I always said that was kind of like the Twilight Zone. But tell us more about your work in trying to change those banking laws.
Well, as you might remember, when SAFE was coming up for its first likely votes in Congress, committee and then floor back in 2019.
And that's the State Banking Act.
Yeah. A coalition of organizations decided to call for delaying it based on the idea that bigger picture reforms like legalization could vote on first. It got voted on first, and then it did get a vote, and it did pass. But it didn't get to the Senate, and the position of the groups shifted from there to banking shouldn't move forward on its own. It should be combined with social equity provisions, including efforts to make banking financing more equitable for people. And the first possible Senate vote did get delayed in late 2021, by which time the surge of armed robberies in Washington State was raging, and I felt it was unfortunate for that reason, but also I didn't see any real analysis politically behind the assertion that passing banking will set back other objectives. Can't rule out the possibility that it would, but it didn't look that way to me. And then one of our board members at the time, who's now a board of advisors member, still close to us, an attorney named Mitzi Vaughn in Seattle, mentioned what was happening with robberies in the state, for clients among those affected, and I learned from that that the community there was tracking these. So I decided, I saw that, and my immediate thought was, well, we can use the list of incidents to create a data set. And so I went through all the reports, categorizing them by what kind of property was targeted, cash or product, or both, and various types of aggression that occurred during armed robberies, and published that report in December 2022. And it's still the only study that's been done on that topic. And so we raise the issue when we can to members of Congress and try to keep getting the word out. It's waiting on some resources being obtained for it, but I want to do a second study that will put together data nationally through a different method and compare different states, in particular the west of the country versus the rest of the country, because it seems like in the west is where by far most of the armed robberies in the sector happen. And my guess is it's because the businesses are in worse shape financially and can't spend effectively on security all of the time.
Mm-hmm. I'd be real interested to compare like Washington and Oregon and California with Illinois and their program, which is notably pretty high priced. Washington does have the highest tax rate, to my knowledge, of any of the marijuana regulatory states. But obviously not being able to access regular banking services is a big problem with the large amount of cash moving through most dispensaries, or at least the successful ones. We hear about murders of these minimum wage workers at these dispensaries regularly here in Oregon, and I know up in Washington as well. So I think that's something that time is past due. You know, the whole here locally, if you want to have, there's a couple of credit unions that will allow dispensaries and cannabis producers to have bank accounts. First, though, they charge a $400 or $500 application fee, and then their monthly service fee is $400 or $500, depending on the institution, per month as well. And that's just outrageous, I think. And they justify it because they have to be inspected by the IRS and the DEA, and that they have to have these records open to them. And that's their reason for the extra costs. But it's another significant burden not being able to access regular banking services at any bank. Wouldn't you agree?
It's it's expensive, and not every state is that expensive, but they're all more expensive than for regular businesses. And there's an uncertainty, and having a bank account doesn't guarantee that you'll be able to accept electronic payments, and no one is legally accepting credit card payments because the credit card networks, none of them are allowing it. There's no code for cannabis, and so people taking actual credit cards are jeopardizing their own ability to be business people in the future. If they're caught, they could be barred by companies, even if the law never gets involved. And
have you known that will happen? Have you known people who've been barred because they were accessing? It doesn't surprise me, but I haven't heard of it personally.
I don't know if it has happened, but I've seen the warning many times, and it may have happened. It's clearly a risk. And the debit card networks, most of them are not stable environments. They can close on a moment's notice. I'm not sure what the reasons are. Maybe they'll shut off access when they're anticipating scrutiny.
They always told me they didn't have to have a reason, that when you signed your account agreement, it says that you can close. And I heard this from all these different institutions, or the majority of them. You sign in your agreement, says they don't have to have a reason to close your account. They can just close it. That very first bank that I had them do that at, and like I said, they said we were the best account at that branch here in Portland. Well, they said they'd only seen it happen once before, and this is back in 2007, so it's right at the implementation of this. And they'd seen it once before with a strip club that had been suspected of engaging in prostitution. So that was the only one at that time. Of course, now it's happened to almost every cannabis business I know of. Unless you go to one of these banks and pay the $500 a month or whatever extra fee they have.
And so one thing people should understand is that getting the Safe Banking Act passing won't necessarily mean that electronic purchasing gets better. And it might not. If it does, it might not mean it's gotten as much better as is needed. Because Visa, MasterCard, Amex, they're all going to make their own decisions on whether they'll start accepting these businesses as customers. There's a portion of the act that tries to make that happen. Some people think it will. Most people I've talked to think it won't, and that it'll require legalization. But some people are saying they think that the credit card networks, despite stating otherwise, as things have progressed, are looking for are considering whether there might be a stage before full legalization in which they would open things up. So we don't know what will happen with that from the Safe Banking Act. There's probably more that'll need to be done to really address the cash issue. But things ought to get better. And talking to people, I saw a number of situations in which the amount of cash around would at least be reduced. So people were saying it's not going to do anything for cash. That's probably overstated as well.
Mm-hmm. In my case, I was just operating clinics, employing medical professionals to help patients get medical marijuana permits. So I was not growing or selling marijuana. I simply was helping medical patients. In fact, our doctors have also had their bank accounts closed for helping medical marijuana patients. And you don't get any chance to debate this. They just say your account's closed. And in some cases, usually they'll give you 30 days to close your account. One time with Bank of America, this is one story I'll relate to you. I was at the gate of Disneyland with my 3 children, my wife, and mother. And we were going into Disneyland when I got a call from my office saying that they got a letter and Bank of America was going to close our account in 3 days. Well, this was on a Monday, and our payroll at that time was about 90 employees. And the payroll had just gone out. And so they said they were going to close it in 3 days, and they sent that out on a Friday. And and my office is calling me on a Monday. So they were going to close it the next day. So I contacted my branch. At that point, it was actually in Riverside, California. And they said, like that first one, you're the best account at our branch. We're depositing money from all over the country. And so they said it wasn't going to happen. No, they hadn't heard anything like that. But just in case, contact our our fraud department and review department. So I contacted their fraud department, Bank of America in San Francisco, and they said, no, there's no problem with your account. We're not going to close it. The next day, my account was closed, and 17 people that one day had their checks bounced, and they didn't stamp them insufficient funds. They stamped them refer to makers. So 17 of my employees got that. So I was incensed that, so I contacted Bank of America's head office in Charlotte, North Carolina, and asked to talk, because I was told it came from the president's office of Bank of America. And so I contacted them, and I told them I was outraged and that, my employees' checks are out right now and they're getting their checks bounced. And I've been through this with other banks, and the other banks had always given me 30 days. So I demanded that they reopen my account and give me 30 days. And they did do that. I threatened them, I was going to sue them, of course, but they did reopen the account. I got 30 days. I transitioned to another bank that would later be closed. and I was able to take our money out of the bank. At that time, it was a couple $100,000 in there, and we'd never bounced a check or anything, so it was pretty odd. But the rest of the payroll checks passed the next day. But that's just one of those 20 different stories. But in my case, the point being, is I wasn't selling marijuana. I did grow separately, just in the state of Oregon, a medical marijuana crop and gave that away for free. It wasn't legal to sell it, so I gave it away for free, which I'm sure the police tried to arrest me many times and trap me into selling it to them. I said, no, it's free. But that's just another little story to relate in terms of the bank, the banking laws and all of that. So David, let me ask you this. If someone wants to get in touch with Stop the Drug War, is Stop the Drug War doing business as, is it under the Drug Reform Coalition, DRCnet?
Well, the legal name of our educational nonprofit, which is the main one, is DRCnet Foundation. The legal name of our 501c4, primarily lobbying nonprofit, is Drug Reform Coordination Network. And stopthedrugwar.org is catch-all name for both, although technically it's a DBA name for DRCnet Foundation. So the way to find us online is to go to stopthedrugwar.org and can write to us from there. With the other names, people search on the other names, they'll find us.
So you're still working with Phil Smith to put out that newsletter. You're about to. Is he in Montana?
Phil is in Central Oregon now.
Oh, okay.
For a while, he grew up in South Dakota and was living in South Dakota for a while.
We had another Phil Smith that was involved with Oregon NORML, who was also quite a prolific writer, and I confused them for a while, but he's not the same Phil Smith.
Yeah, I remember that now. Whenever you mention it.
Yeah. So if someone wanted to make a donation or reach out, they go to stopthedrugwar.org.
Yes.
Okay. And are there any specific projects that you're looking to finance these days?
Yeah. Well, we're our restart of the newsletter, or being able to continue it for more than a week or two, is going to depend on donations, and we need to be raising a minimum of $800 a week for that. Really more, but we can do it for now with $800. I'm trying to raise money for a second report on robberies. Would like to raise about $50,000 for that, and for human rights work, and our UN work generally. And the general support funds. So that's essentially what we're looking for help of that type with right now.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Back when I was petitioning in the early 1990s, I found one of my more successful calls out to passersby at events would be stop the drug war before they kick in your door. You ever use those two together?
No.
If you haven't used it, it's a good thing. It calls out, it's kind of that rhyming, stop the drug war before they kick in your door. I found it was pretty effective in getting people to come over and look at the petition at least.
We might just try that out.
Yes, go ahead. It's public domain. So how did you first get involved in this, David? We've got about 10 minutes or so to go here. What was your background before? You're obviously a computer expert. That's how you got involved with starting the email list and stuff. Of course, the email list isn't too difficult, but tell us more about what your background is.
Well, I'd say
We've been doing this for 33 years, so we were both a lot younger back then.
yes, we were. I try not to think about that, but
Hard to remind.
I'd say I don't think of myself as a computer expert. I could have been one. I have aptitude for computers, and so I was able to get around and do things that would have been hard for a lot of people because of that. Uh, I studied astrophysics in college,
Wow.
and I also have a master's in music, composition in the jazz studies program at a conservatory. So then, I got into this just from wanting to save the world, and this is the issue that jumped out at me. But I think maybe my scientific background helps me set aside preconceptions and be able to think about how the world could work differently if laws were different, and or just to think generally without being stopped by preconceptions, or think about how if everyone feels drugs are bad, to understand that doesn't necessarily tell us what the best way to respond to drugs is. That one can inadvertently make things worse. And then maybe that my creative side helps me imagine a world that's different. It took me about 15 years to come up with that. So I guess I've been using it for the 15 years since then.
Great. So is there anything that I forgot to ask you about or that we should talk about here, David?
I mean, that's what we're involved in. As I say, for those of us, and I'm not going to make assumptions about the makeup of your audience, ideologically on other things, but for people who see the democracy as in danger, I would say drugs is one of those issues that can rear up and be a threat to democracy. Maybe not all the time as
Well, we can look at what Haldeman said. Nixon implemented the Controlled Substances Act of 1972 to imprison leftists and African Americans and take them out of the voting systems. So that's something that Nixon's chief of staff, Haldeman, admitted to. I'm sure you recall that.
Yeah.
So I put Nixon up there as one of the main evil people in the implementation and escalation of the drug war in American society. And that's one of the things that motivated me, seeing how they were using the drug war to silence social critics like Abby Hoffman and other people that were moving for progressive social change. And so that was something that's very clear to me from an early age. So it didn't surprise me to hear Haldeman had admitted it basically in the media, that Nixon's whole war on drugs, and he's the first one to come up with that phrase, I believe, the war on drugs, or his administration was. And boy, they sure amped it up into a war under Reagan. In the 70s, I first went to a cannabis protest in Washington. You're in Washington, D.C., right, or in that area? I first went to the White House smoke-in 78. It was just a week after my 18th birthday. And so that's had an impact. But I've been at it a long time. And back then, in the 70s, people used to think that cannabis would be legalized in 4 or 5 years. We'd seen 10 different states decriminalize, and it looked like legalization was on the cusp. California voted to legalize first in 1972. They got 34% of the vote for the old Proposition 19, which ironically was the same number of the marijuana legalization bill in 2010. It was also Proposition 19, but it looked in the the late 70s, like we were on the cusp of legalization. But Ronald Reagan seems to have quashed that, in my opinion, with his and Nancy Reagan's "Just Say No" campaign. Is that your perception?
Well, I'd say I'm certainly you're not the only one who talks about I thought it was going to happen in the 70s. I would say my impression is the Reagans played a role, but the numbers probably weren't there for it to actually happen.
Well, in 72, they did get 34% of the vote. And then in 1986, we put marijuana legalization on the ballot in Oregon for a second time. And we just got 27% of the vote. So our numbers went down. I mean, of course, that was at the height of Nancy Reagan's "Just Say No" campaign. And we had every U.S. attorney in the Western United States come and campaign against our initiative. We complained that that was a violation of the Hatch Act, which says that federal employees cannot be involved in political campaigning. But at the time, Ed Meese was the attorney general, and he ruled marijuana legalization was not a political issue. It was a law enforcement issue. So they could do whatever they want. But that's the way they kept acting over that time. But there's another little tidbit. So we're about out of time. Is there anything you want to say in closing, David?
Just I appreciate being invited onto the show, and appreciate your commitment, which in years I think is even longer than mine. And it's so reassuring and comforting that some colleagues from back then are still here as colleagues.
I appreciate your work all these years, David. It's a pleasure to be able to do this interview. I know we haven't talked much over the years, but I'm glad I could get you on here. And if people want to reach you, stopthedrugwar.org is the best way to get involved.
Yes.
Okay, and consider that phrase, "Stop the Drug War," before they kick in your door. At least it's a good call to bring people to your booth if you're out doing that sort of thing.
I will definitely be considering that.
Okay, thank you, and keep working. Restore hemp. Good night.
Yes.
Increase the amount of money for handling the problem of dangerous drugs sevenfold. It will be $600 million this year. More money will be needed in the future. I want to say, however, that despite our budget problems, to the extent money can help in meeting the problem of dangerous drugs, it will be available. This is one area where we cannot have budget cuts, because we must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one in the United States, the problem of dangerous drugs.
It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. We'll shoot your dogs in front of your kids, 'cause we are the SWAT. We're here for your pot and all the cash that you've got. We are adrenaline junkies taking orders from the top. KGB and the DEA, they'll make you disappear like in Guantanamo Bay. In the middle of the night, you'll have nothing nothing to say. If we get the wrong address, it doesn't matter anyway. We'll still get our kicks, we'll still have our fun. Yeah, we are the SWAT, we are adrenaline junkies till the drugs are all gone. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. Paramilitary police state on parade. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. You do the time for your victimless crime. And it's a no-knock raid. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. This is a war, and this is your fate. We are the face of your new police state. We are the law, and we've got the guns. Statutory power, mandatory minimums. We are the SWAT, we're here for your pot and all the cash that you got. We are adrenaline junkies taking orders from the czar. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. Paramilitary police state on parade. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. You do the time for your victimless crime. And it's a no-knock raid. It's a no-knock raid, don't be afraid. Paramilitary police state on parade. Flashbang on the ground, don't hear a sound. Could be you, could be the mayor of your town. And it's a no-knock raid. It's a no-knock